Take care of yourself. Have a good time. And make the most of whatever job you have for as long as God gives you life. And that's about it. That's the human lot. Yes, we should make the most of what God gives, both the bounty and the capacity to enjoy it, accepting what's given and delighting in the work. It's God's gift. God deals out joy in the present. That's now. It's useless to brood over how long we might live. Ecclesiastes is very interesting. And then there's a few from Psalms. Psalms 73, 25 through 26. You're all I want in heaven. You're all I want on earth. When my skin sags and my bones get brittle, God is rock firm and faithful. Psalm 71, 17 through 18. You got me when I was an unformed youth, God, and taught me everything I know. Now I'm telling the world your wonders. I'll keep at it until I'm old and gray. And then there's a couple from Proverbs. Proverbs 16:31. Gray hair is a mark of distinction, the award for a God-loyal life. You think of your gray hair as a reward? And Proverbs 20:29. Youth may be admired for vigor, but gray hair gives prestige to old age. And then Philippians 1:6. I like this one a lot. There has never been the slightest doubt in my mind that God who started this great work in you will keep at it and bring it to a flourishing finish on the very day Christ Jesus appears. So now is the time for our panel discussion. And I just want to tell you, you guys can start coming up if you want to. I just wanted to tell you a little bit of what I did to these poor people. So I sent them 14 questions. That's a lot of questions. And so clearly there is no way we could get everybody's answer to all 14 questions. So I was thinking I would read all 14 questions just so you all have a sense of what topics we could be talking about. And maybe you would even want to say, hey, but I really want to know this, you know. So the questions are, what was the most helpful advice you received on aging and or retirement? What do you wish someone would have told you about that would have been helpful? How do you think or feel about your material things, whether that's downsizing, giving things away, the emotional attachment that you have to certain items that your family members or others don't have, or other aspects? Do you believe you have lived a full, meaningful life, and how does that affect you now? How do you deal with the physical bodily changes you've experienced? If you are retired, how did you come to decide it was time for that? How did you prepare? And what would you recommend to others? What gives you the most happiness, joy, and or meaning at this stage of your life? Have you experienced losing friends or family who are close to your own age, and what has that been like for you? How has your faith impacted your experience with aging and or retirement? Has your faith changed in this phase of life? What do you think or feel about being the holder of certain memories? Do you try to pass those on? How and which ones? Have you experienced any memory loss, and what has that been like for you? How do you cope? Did you experience a loss of your professional identity after retiring, and how did you cope with that? How do you feel about or think about the possibility of your children helping you instead of the other way around? So I thought, panel, that I would let you guys choose what questions stood out to you that you wanted to answer. You don't have to answer any of them if you don't want to. And it certainly does not have to be a thing where you're like, okay, you answer and then you answer. No, you could just have one person answer. That's okay too. It's whatever Whatever you think would work the best. So I thought at least the first two questions were kind of introductory. So if you have any answers to what is the most helpful advice that you received about aging, or what do you wish that somebody would have told you about aging or retirement?
Well, the most helpful advice that I
Do you want
got,
the microphone, or do you want to
No,
go up?
I think,
If you just
It's-
move
I
that
think
closer,
so,
you might
yeah.
be okay.
Put it a little closer.
Should pick us all up.
well,
yeah, come here.
a piece of advice that I got from my accountant that I treasure is he said, take your Social Security as soon as you can, because take it, well, you might not have as much, but you will enjoy it more. And so I didn't listen the first year he said that. And the second year, I had my son run the numbers. If I took it at age 63, and there's how much total you get out of the system, or if I took it at 65, and those lines crossed at age 80. And I thought, I'm going to take that money now. And I have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I don't remember a lot of advice. Just like, I got a lot of advice when we had kids, but, prepare yourself for parenting. How do you prepare yourself for aging? But I do think of some examples in my life where I admire them. That doesn't mean I follow them, but I remember Clara Schwantes, who we used to take from her house to church. She was an elderly lady that attended our congregation for a while, and she had finally made the decision to sell her house and move next door to her daughter in Waterloo. And she said, my kids listened to me for so many years, and now it's my turn to listen to them. So I thought that was a good way. She was making her own decision, which was still good too. I think of my dad, who retired from farming at 65 and moved into town and let my brothers make the decisions. Some of it was because of his health. He had had heart surgery at 65. But he lived a full life after that too. He lived to be 87. I also think of my uncle, who I visit with every week on the phone, and he's probably 84. And during the pandemic, he decided to sell his row house in downtown Philadelphia and move to a retirement center in an apartment. And that was really something I admired to tackle during that time, because he doesn't drive anymore, so he had to take the bus to travel different places and arrange everything. And also, he's very optimistic. I mean, he talks about his doctor visits, but he also has become so involved with the people who are there. In fact, the other week he told me, I had 3 people who wanted to talk to me. And so he's made a lot of friends even at that age. So that's kind of encouraging to me to see that. And he's taking a drawing class. He gave his lectures. He was a music therapist. They have the different people give lectures about different careers they had. He plays in the bell choir, and he's still involved in his church. He has to take the bus downtown to be involved in that church, but. His optimism, I think, is helping him through aging.
I had a friend tell me, you'll feel like you're skipping school when you retire. Maybe just because she'd suggested it, I had a little bit of that, but I wasn't working full-time anyway, so it was probably an easier transition for me. And I got tired of writing grants to support my projects. So it was kind of an easier decision to go. Well, Jack and I partnered on a couple of grants that were really successful, and so it was just kind of like, good, done.
I remembered some advice from a friend who is about my age and retired high school physics teacher, actually, who was in good health and suddenly contracted a rare heart disease where his heart was suddenly deteriorating, and he went from being physically quite active to laying in a hospital bed with a machine pumping blood through his body in just a matter of months. And he survived. He got a heart transplant, and this was probably 10 years ago or so, but I asked him then afterwards, Ken, I said, did you learn anything through this, or what sort of advice would you give? I mean, he had been staring at death's door there for months, and he said, whatever you want to do, just do it. There's no guarantees of anything. I thought he might talk about this near-death experience, but the advice he gave was to do it now, and I don't know that I particularly followed that advice, but it sounded like good advice.
Sounds like good advice for any age.
I guess, yeah.
So, did any of you have certain questions that stood out to you that you felt like you wanted to share, or you thought it might be helpful to us, or that you just want to share?
What was that one about? Holding the memories. No, I can't see it. Oh, what do you think about, are you the holder of any memories? Do you try to pass those on? When my kids were little, I wrote out a bunch of questions for my parents, because I didn't know the answers to them, like, how did you learn how to drive? My mom was from Seattle, Washington, so she had some hair-raising stories about her older brother teaching her how to drive on the hills of Seattle with a stick shift car.
That's how I learned to drive.
Yeah. And Dad had a newspaper route. He was from Lincoln, Nebraska, where I grew up, but he had a lot of stories about as a young kid and being a Boy Scout. And so I asked him a bunch of questions, and they tape recorded these when they were in the car coming over to visit us. And those were really valuable for me. I'm not so sure so much for our kids, but they were valuable. So then when we finally had a grandson 3 years ago, Benjamin and Katie had a bunch of questions that they asked to us if we wanted to write something to Burke about. And so we've been doing that each year for his birthday. And I mean, there are certain things that I want him to know about, like typewriters. And because I was a writer, and that's how I would do my writing for many, many years. And just little things like that that I think that it is important to pass on. And it might not ever make any sense to him, but that's okay. And I've also written him a few stories, goofy little short stories about picking apples in our orchard and stuff like that. So I think that's an important thing to do from both directions.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
I don't remember what the occasion was, but for some Christmas or birthday, Catherine, my daughter-in-law,
gave me a book to fill out about memories.
it's not on, and the title of it is Grandma, Tell Me Your Story.
Oh,
And so
nice.
then I give it.
It's on now.
Okay.
So I mean, it's very helpful because it has, prompts.
Yeah,
On this page, you write about this, and,
nice.
yeah.
I know my nephew's wife's family, who the grandparents are still alive, and they have opened it up to their extended family, that every 2 weeks or so they ask a question of the grandparents, and then they write it down, and the one woman is keeping track of all the answers. So it's just a snippet at a time, and
Nice.
they're enjoying that. During the pandemic, I decided to write some childhood memories, and Byron suggested putting some pictures with it. So I looked at some pictures, and I went up till we got married. Then I thought, well, my kids can tell the story from there. But I didn't feel like my kids got as much of a view of what my childhood years were as I did living in my dad's community, where my grandparents and my aunts and uncles lived, and so they talked about things that had happened in the past. Anyway, I thought it'd be good for my kids to have I know Michael read it, because I asked him to look over it, so.
Any other questions that stood out to you, or I can read some too?
Well, what gives you the most happiness, joy, or meaning at this stage of your life?
Oh, you're asking us?
I'm
How about
asking
you, Evelyn?
What gives me joy? Okay, right now my joy is I am unpacking things that have been packed away for 6 years. And it's things that I didn't need, obviously, because they could sit in the garage for 6 years and I didn't need them. But now I get to have them back. And I pick up this thing and it has, like, I got this vase in Corinth with my son. I got this, I think it's a water bottle in Kuala Lumpur with my other son. It's like just fun. It's giving me joy just to have those things back. And some of them, I don't need another water bottle. I don't need another vase. But I'm going to keep them because they give me joy. Yeah.
So that kind of borders two questions. What gives you joy and meaning, and what do you think and feel about things?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Yeah.
So if any of you want to jump on either of those, that's.
I don't know. Stuff is hard. I mean, I know that I'm sure there's a lot of people in the same boat that our kids don't want any of our stuff except maybe the piano. I'd probably not even that. So then you have to figure out what are you going to do. And I know there are businesses, I think it's called Caring Connection, that for a fee will come in and help you sort through, and I know a number of people who have done this, help you sort through what do you want to keep, what do you want to not keep, and then help you find a home for that stuff. And we have friends right now that they're not using Caring Connections, but they're going through this themselves, and it takes an incredible amount of time, and that's probably why nobody wants to do it.
Yeah.
Until you're forced to. So it's hard, yeah.
When I was at Boy Scout camp, I had a few hours on my own, and so I had the Marie Kondo tidying book, and where you take everything in your house and one by one you touch it, and does it give you joy, you keep it. If it doesn't, out it goes. And so I'm kind of doing that when I'm moving.
Yeah, good time to do it.
Yeah, because I have to touch everything anyway.
Right, that's good.
I did take some digital pictures of things that were special to me, from my grandmother, my grandparents, or some things that I had made. And also, like I have wall hanging from Wanda and a rug we bought from Agnes, so that my kids will know what it is. And that helped me too, to think, okay, I'm providing us a way for them to see if they want it, and if they don't, that's their choice. But it
That's a
relieved
good
me,
idea.
and certainly Byron has no clue what any of those things cost.
Let's talk about tools.
Yeah, I don't have an attachment to much material things, and
Wood.
Yeah,
no.
bikes.
I get a kick out of saving things or getting things to work that shouldn't be able to work yet, but otherwise, nothing that means a whole lot to me. And so I don't know what question this really relates to specifically, but I'm 70 years old, and I never really intended to get old. It happened really rather quickly, the whole thing, although there are some entire years I have no memory of at all, of these 70 years. But the data is quite clear. You peak physically in your 20s, in your late 20s physically is when you're going to be as well off as you're ever going to be physically, and then you peak mentally in your 30s. If you're not well along on your Nobel Prize in your 30s, you're not going to get one. But your overall knowledge peaks actually in your 40s, this is according to the data, as you accumulate more knowledge. But by the time you're in your 50s, it's all downhill from there. And it was kind of surprising to me how quickly this inevitable demise is, because I work in corporate America, where once you're in your 60s, there's a big push to get rid of you, really, and so I'm the kind of guy who, if you ask me how I'm doing, I'll say better than ever, and this is completely false, but it's what we would like. Wouldn't that be nice? But really it isn't, and so you know, I don't know what the point of this thing I was saying is, but aging is not that much fun, but it's inevitable, and I guess it's how you face it that's important.
I'm surprised to be alive. All of my immediate family passed in their 50s and 60s, and here I am in my 70s, and I guess modern medicine that keeps me going. But yeah. But I don't have any siblings. I don't have my parents. Most of my cousins are gone.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just a strange situation to not
Yeah,
have
yeah.
contemporaries in the family.
You have us.
Yes, I do. I do indeed. Yes.
I think, yeah, the whole physical thing is weird and surprising to me, and I don't know why it shouldn't be, but I started doing aerobics in my 20s and kept up with stuff like that, and some of the latest fads, and we ran for a while, even though that was not my favorite thing to do ever. But I've just been trying to stay active in so many different ways, and gravity just sucks. You can't beat it. So that's, I admit, that's kind of surprised me. I'm going to keep moving, but there's this gradual.
Decline. Yes.
Yes.
That's one of the hardest things for me, is facing the not being able to do what I used to do,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
dreading doctor visits. And I still go to my dentist and get good reports. Otherwise, it's like, oh, what am I going to hear this time? So that has been the hardest for me in aging.
And I found that along those lines, my life is narrowing down. I loved going, after I retired, I worked with MDS for years. And there's no way I can carry that pan of lasagna up and down the stairs anymore. So life gets narrower. And two things about that. One is I've learned to ask for help when I need it. And I only ask for help when I need it. But when I ask, I really need it. So people are often offering help that I'm rejecting because I don't need it. But stick around because I will. And then, what was the other piece about that? I don't know. I guess as I'm finding things that I can't do anymore and the life gets narrower that way, I try to add in new things that I can do. And quilting is one. And I had this whole stack of stuff to quilt for MCC, and I haven't done it yet. I haven't had time. But I'll get there.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how your faith has either made a difference in this time or changed?
My faith is probably more focused on this life rather than the next life. Not sure if that was the part of some of those questions, but the kingdom of God here on earth is more of a focus, partly because I don't really know much about the afterlife, and I'm kind of wondering. My parents were quite different. That was a different generation, but toward the end, and one had dementia, another had a stroke, so I don't know if they really knew a whole lot. But they were both looking forward to dying and moving on to the next life. And so I kind of wondered, well, is that ever going to happen to me? Hasn't yet. Let's just say.
Many years ago, a physician friend of mine in the Mennonite church, we were talking about like physician-assisted suicide and when you decide that you're done. He said, well, when you're standing at death's door, we'll pull you through. So you mean to keep you alive or we'll let you go?
Yeah, which way?
Yeah, we'll pull you through.
I had a friend who died last fall, who was 97, and for years before that, she kept saying, I just feel like a remnant. All my friends are gone. She was still, mentally, she was always mentally very alert and aware of what was going on in the world and in her community, but she just felt I left behind. And I know that that was really upsetting to her. And I bet if there was physician-assisted suicide in Iowa, that she, at some point, probably would have chosen that. And I have to respect that of people who competently make that kind of a decision. So, yeah.
So you need to save enough money to get yourself to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Or,
So
I
I've
don't
been
know,
hearing-
doesn't Oregon have it, or?
Well, they have physician assisted, but I think you have to be within 6 months of, you have a terminal
Oh,
diagnosis,
oh,
and if you
okay.
don't have one, in Basel, Switzerland, there's an organization that will just help you out.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Oregon does have a body compost.
Yay, I want that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just the problem of body transportation.
Getting there, yeah.
I appreciate this song, Great Is Thy Faithfulness, because the words were really fitting for me. I felt like through summer and winter, God has been faithful. So hopefully during aging and whatever comes by, because, I mean, looking at older people who have faced health issues, et cetera, it's not an easy thing to go through.
No.
My dad took care of my mom for 9 years after she had her stroke, till he could finally give up that caring, and she was at a nursing home then for a couple years. His parents suffered, both of them. My dad had a heart attack, which was easy for him, but not us. But just knowing that God has been faithful in the past helps me to have hope for the future, I guess.
The other thing that's sort of challenging for us is knowing, well, how long do we want to stay in our home, and how long are we going to be able to garden and keep the home up and do all those things that we really care about and love. And yeah, that's a struggle. Yeah, we have friends who, I don't know, some in their 60s decided to move to the Western home and got rid of a lot of stuff, and now some who are turning 80 who are making that transition, and we don't feel ready to do that, but we really need to get a plan developed. I think that's one of the most important things. We all have all the legal stuff done that we want to get done, but we need to try to figure out what's that going to look like. And it's so hard, because who knows? And this aging stuff, you don't know how long you'll be able to garden, Byron. I don't know if you think about that or not.
Yeah, I think about that, and I'm gonna go with my boots on.
Good. Stuck in the mud.
Well, I have no idea how and when to cut this off, because I think we could talk forever.
We could.
I want to hear other people's thoughts.
Is there any other burning thought before we move to, what?
I have a question.
Oh, Paul has a question.
So I have to tack on to what Byron said. I've been doing some reading and thinking about, cognitive decline, and there's a concept of crystallized intelligence, and what you're referring to they call fluid intelligence, and it does peak in your 30s. But crystallized intelligence is basically wisdom. And so my question would be for y'all, that some of you are about 10 years ahead of a couple of people in this room, what advice would you give to us to kind of close out our careers and move into that early retirement phase?
Have something to do.
Yeah,
Don't just retire into a void.
yeah.
Well, and I think retirement is something you need to decide that you're ready for. For me, I sort of got pushed out, and during the COVID pandemic, there was an early retirement program at John Deere where I worked, and I sort of had to take this because they were targeting older, expensive workers like me with a letter that came around saying, please leave, here's a bunch of money if you'll just please leave. And you didn't want to hang around and take some young person's job, because it also said you may not even have a job if you don't take this. So it was retirement at a time when there was nothing you could really do anyway during COVID, and I felt like I was kind of on top of my game at the time, but I was 65, and this retirement went badly for me. It only lasted 3 months or something when they called up and said, "Would you like to come back?" And I said, "Yeah." But I was mildly depressed. I didn't really see a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It was kind of like, oh, who cares? And I think if you retire on your own terms, it goes better than that. But the question is, do you retire on top of your game, or do you wait like Joe Biden until until they push you out?
Doing all right.
I really don't know. I'm the type of person who doesn't let loose of anything. So I went back on contract, and I'm still there working full time. This could come to an end at the end of the fiscal year, in which case I hope that I handle it better this time around. I think I will. But I don't know. I'm at work, and I'm looking at these young kids screwing up, and I'm thinking, I'm still better than that. But I'm clearly slower, and they're hacking and whacking with the mouse moving on the screen faster than I can even watch it, and so it's the data's pretty clear. You might have crystallized intelligence, but you can't even get it out. So anyway.
I don't know, Paul, I think you probably know the answer too, but if there's something that you've kind of thought about doing, figure out many more years you want to focus on particular projects. And if it's possible, maybe it's not always possible. And so, I was just gonna say, sometimes there's things that you can do after you retire that could still be connected to your profession. And so it's not like you have to necessarily do it all. Excuse me.
One new thing that Daryl Weens picked up is he's been writing short stories, and some of them are kind of historical,
Uh-huh.
but he sent some to me, and they're really interesting.
Oh,
And I
neat.
think he's had a couple published
That's
too,
neat.
so that's a different vein of
Yeah.
than what he did in his
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
One thing that we need to do kind of as a society that's not going to happen, but maybe as a community, is figure out, unlike corporate America, how do we value what y'all have to offer that may not be as fast or as productive in terms of, how much do you crank out? But I know even in my profession, I've gotten to the point where there's really 2 or 3 things that I'm good at, but I'm really good at those things. Because I've been doing it, and just kind of, I think you said, Evelyn, just narrowing. And so if you see me for one of those things, you're getting, I would like to say, kind of world-class help. If you see me for anything else, it's average at best. But as, we make transitions with this community, the wisdom and the experience, I don't know that any of us have been through exactly what this church is going through before, but we've been through a lot. And so I would like to open it up that, as we move forward, the wisdom and the experience that we have in here, please share.
One last thing I wanted to say is I remembered at one picnic we had that Agnes and Virginia and Mary Martin did a little skit where they were the minnow chicks. And so some of us who were younger decided we were the chicklets. So I guess we're the minnow chicks now, and we have some chicklets out here.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap up this section, but we do have the time for reflection and discussion, so we could open it up even more out here too.